What makes you afraid? Some of All Fear lives at the crossroads between our greatest phobias and the horror movies we love to experience. Part pop culture and part psychology. It's time to find out why we're all so scared of the dark.
You take great pictures.
No, I
Yeah,
don't.
you do.
No,
You take wonderful pictures.
no, because I can't time when my face and my body should look appropriately in the appropriate places. So something's always out of place. It's like an arm is like squeezed too closely to my body, or my face is mid thinking about smile.
Well, I think you're wonderful.
Oh,
I think you look wonderful.
you're very kind.
Mm.
You have to say that too.
No, I don't.
Technically,
I mean, not like contractually obligated.
you did sign something. You
I
didn't
did
read
sign
the fine
something,
print.
but I'm pretty sure it wasn't in the fine print.
I have a video of you signing something, and I could have made you sign
I was super drunk. We
anything
could get that
I could
turned
have
over.
fucking wanted.
In a court of law, I'm pretty sure that they would say that I was too inebriated to be signing any sort of official documents.
Yeah, no, that was very official, and you were highly, highly intoxicated. We should not have
Oh.
signed that. Hey, who in the heck kind of an officiant lets a inebriated
yeah,
wedding
Heath.
couple?
Yeah, Heath. Seriously, my brother. Welcome back, Feardos.
Hey, Feardos.
We are the Sum of All Fear podcast,
Yeah, we are.
hosted by myself. I'm Drew, a full-time writer and horror nerd, and my sexy-ass wife, Kris,
Yay, it's me. Hi.
professional mental health therapist and
Sometimes.
part-time roller derby star.
Full-time.
Um,
Full-time roller derby, part-time,
So I was thinking about
Not a
this.
star.
I was thinking about this week.
not a star at all.
Can we call you Kris the phobia killer? Because isn't that kind of what you do? Like you kill people's phobias.
I mean, I don't.
It's like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, but
I don't kill.
Chashatic phobia killer.
I don't kill anything. Like the people who are working through their phobias, they're the ones that are killing
I know.
their phobias.
You never want to take any credit.
Well, no, because I always say that therapists are more like, this is going to date me, like a Garmin. You know,
What's a
those.
Garmin?
Remember, like a TomTom or a Garmin or a GPS system that used to be outside of our phone.
Yeah. Gotcha.
That's why I said it's going to date me.
Gotcha.
And I always say that therapists are like a Garmin, you know, like people should input where they want to go, and we'll help you get, kind of point you in the right directions. But ultimately you press the gas, you turn the wheel, you stop when you want to stop. And that's not up to us.
Can't you just say GPS?
I can now, but in my head, when I created it, it was Garmin, and I always think of a Garmin. So if Garmin is still a company,
Sitting in a dorm room in 2003.
yeah, 2003,
Whatever.
I was in high school in 2003. I was a junior.
Shut up. I was sitting in a dorm room.
You
in
just
2003.
dated yourself.
So we had a pretty mellow week again.
It was great.
So that's good. Imagine that. Another mellow week.
Thank
Crazy.
God.
Easing into this fall season somewhat nicely.
Fuck yeah, fall.
I mean, let's get there. I'm ready. I'm ready
Let's
for fall
do
to
it.
officially start. Let's do it.
Some of the trees around have already started to turn. It's coming.
Yeah. I mean, I'm ready for Spirit Halloweens are starting to pop up.
You're ready for actual Halloween season,
Yeah.
not like rest of the year Halloween season.
Halloween season starts in like July.
No, Halloween
me.
season is
It starts-
all year long.
It starts November 1st. That's when it starts. We need to give a quick shout out to our good friend and fellow Feardo Wayne. It's his birthday week.
Happy birthday, Wayne!
They're having like birthday shindigs down in Carson today, which I was hoping maybe we'd go down and say hi, but I'm not sure we're gonna make it. But I wanted to say happy birthday to Wayne.
That's a good dude.
Yeah. So we got to get that in there for sure.
Happy birthday, Feardo.
We got an amazing endorsement this week.
Oh, he was so kind.
from the star and host of the documentary Why Horror, which we featured in the last episode.
And we've watched at
I've
least
watched it like
half
4
a
or 5
dozen times.
and,
Yeah.
And it's on Shudder right now. So if you have Shudder,
It's so good.
you need to watch it. If you don't have Shudder, you need to get it because it's awesome. But the man himself, the host of the documentary, Mr. Tal Zimmerman, wrote a really, really nice response on our Instagram this week. He said, "Just listen to the episode and it was awesome. You both are hilarious and have a great rapport, and the material and the way you deliver it really speaks to me. My wife happens to be a fancy pants book learning type with a career focus on mind body health.
We'd get along.
Her PhD looked at stress on pregnant women and the possible link to allergies in babies.
It's amazing.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah.
So when you guys get going on angles like gut brain or stress responses and how they mutate, it's not far off from the things we discuss at home. after the kids go to bed. I'm so glad I discovered you, even if it was by way of my own vanity. Looking forward to diving into past and future episodes. Super cool.
I really appreciate that feedback, especially from someone who before he even mentioned anything, I consider this documentary to be insanely well put together.
Well, and it's really so applicable to to this podcast and what we do.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The concepts of why do we like these things? Why do we like to scare ourselves? What's the whole fear response all about?
It's
all that kind
wonderful.
of stuff. So thank you so much for the really thoughtful note, Tal. And if you're listening, we'd love to get your feedback, some more as you go along. If you've listened to more episodes, and I just got approved, I think last week, to start contributing articles to Rue Morgue. Rue Morgue magazine.
I'm so excited.
So I might start writing some articles for them, which would be really cool. As many of you know, it's a kick-ass horror magazine, fantastic web magazine. And I think Tal might be associated with Rue Morgue as well.
Well, a few folks from Rue Morgue were in that.
Maybe send him a quick message, and I need to submit my first article. That would probably be a good first step.
Yes.
Too. So
get after it.
Yeah. So very cool. Tal Zimmerman gave us a cool endorsement. So that was fun.
Thanks very much to our pal, Tal.
Oh, I like that.
Oh.
And if you like the show, we'd love to continue this little love fest on the old social media.
Be a part of our love fest.
So come join the conversation at Some of All Fear Podcast on Facebook and at Some of All Fear Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And if the good Lord has tickled that special little place in your heart, you can support us on Patreon, like our awesome FEARDO friends, James from the Eek Channel podcast, which you should all be downloading and listening to as well.
I love their clips. That pod room is so rad.
They have a really cool pod room.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we need to step up our game.
And that's, another thing that I really appreciate is other podcasters and producers of shows who reach out and give us feedback in all kinds of manners.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. This community has been amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool. And our friend Toby from McKinney, Texas, another Patreon supporter.
Hi, Toby.
And of course, please go to your podcast apps, guys, and give us a rating and a review. And we will definitely give you a shout out on the podcast and on social media. So go do that.
You too can hear
awesome.
your name
really
right here.
It. Yeah. What else is going on this week? We need to go see Ready or Not.
Gosh, I do. I want to see that.
I have heard it's really good.
What was the other one we were talking about wanting to go see?
I don't know. What was the other one we wanted to go see?
I asked you, I said, is there going to be a double feature at the drive-in?
I don't remember what the other one was. I don't remember what's out right now. Other than that one. But Ready or Not, I've heard that Samara Weaving, the final girl in this one, or main character, she's kind of the new hip scream queen.
Yeah.
She was in The Babysitter on Netflix a while back that I really liked. I liked that movie a lot. It was fun. Really fun little flick. But what else?
We finished Mindhunter this week.
Mindhunter? Yeah.
You thought
really
that season 2's 2 fell a little flat in terms of.
I still really liked it. I didn't think it fell flat. I think I liked season 1 a little better, but I don't know. They were just so good.
You had Kemper,
Kemper was in the first season. Way more.
He was such a drawing presence in that first season.
They're all so good though. Everybody that plays
Brutos,
the serial killers.
Oh my gosh.
The Jerry Brutos character in the first season. But the guys who played Manson,
he just takes the shoes and he walks over and jerks off to him. That's so.
It was super creepy.
No, it's so.
No, it wasn't creepy. You want guys to take shoes and go in the corner and jerk off them?
That's not the equivalent of not creepy. I just find it interesting. I mean, I got a degree in criminal justice and psychology so that I could study those people, because this was.
Study why dudes take shoes in the corner and jerk off to them?
While they're in prison after hanging 4 teenage women up in their garages.
Their special garage.
And hiding them from their wife.
Yeah, not cool, man. Not cool, Jerry Brutos.
The extremes are very interesting. And that's why we sit here talking about fears. It's part of the extremes that we all experience.
Yeah, but I thought the performances by the guy who played Marilyn Manson. Charles Manson.
Damn, next season on Mindhunter.
The guy who played Charles Manson
was
really good. I thought the guy who played who was the other one? Berkowitz. Did a really great job. And they do a really good job of making those guys look just spot on.
Unnervingly spot on.
So good. So yeah, check out Mindhunter if you haven't watched it. It's on Netflix and it's badass.
Someone could switch out the lead the lead guy for Mindhunter. What's his name? Not Tench, but Holden with the lead character from Sunny in Philadelphia, and I would never know.
Oh yeah, they do look kind of
so
like,
similar. What's his name? Matt, not Mac.
no,
Dennis. Yeah, Dennis and Holden
for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Coming in season 3.
So do you think? I was thinking I should do a Sum of All Fear podcast. Presents 30 days of phobias of Halloween movie phobia or phobia Halloween movies. Like do 30 days, set up a list and be like, do a different phobia every day for the 30 days of Halloween.
That might be
like
fun.
A watch list.
Do I have to watch them?
You don't have to watch them.
Oh,
no.
thank God.
I mean, they'll be on because I'll be watching them, but
I have an office.
I'll just make it, and I'll make it ones
maybe
I'll make it ones we haven't done anything on yet. So do different ones.
I'll just retreat to my office and listen to Box of Oddities and Dr. Drew.
There you go. All right, you ready to play some? What the Fear?
Yeah, let's do this. I got 1 out of 3 last week. I'm feeling like a redeemer.
You ready to come back?
Let's do it.
All right. It's time for the world's greatest phobia-based trivia game.
What the fear? You say it now.
What the fear?
There you go. Okay, you have to say it like that.
Time for What the Fear. You ready?
Yeah.
You ready for some phobias?
Give it to me.
And then we will try to decide what that phobia is a phobia of.
Give it to me. Show me what you got.
Show me what you got. When's Rick and Morty coming back? I'm ready for some
2020. It feels like everything's coming back in 2020.
I really like Rick and Morty. I don't like Rick and Morty fans. They're kind of douchebags, but
wait, we're Rick and Morty fans.
Oh, yeah, I guess we are. But a lot of them are.
We're kind of douchebags too.
Remember the whole McDonald's debacle, and I don't know. Rick and Morty fans seem like kind of like they're tools. All right,
it wasn't a debacle. They just wanted their Szechuan sauce.
They wanted their sauce.
They're serious about the sauce.
Are you ready for your first phobia?
Yes.
You ready to redeem yourself?
You've asked me if I'm ready like 9 times.
If
you're playing at home,
are you really ready?
It's a shot for every time he says, "Are you ready?"
Are you really, really ready? All right. Your first fear of the day is acrophobia. ACA, acarophobia. ACARO, phobia. Acarophobia. Do you need your hint?
Mm-hmm.
If you had this phobia, you would probably want to avoid poison ivy. And for you, Kris, anytime during the evenings in the summer, and yeast infections would be terrifying as well.
What?
Wait, no, the yeast infections. That's what threw me. Can you repeat?
If you had this phobia, you would probably want to avoid poison ivy, and probably anytime during the evenings in the summer. And yeast infections would be terrifying as well.
What the French toast?
What's the French toast?
The fork.
I mean,
kind of a comment.
Let's use our process of elimination here, or correlation.
You correlate everything.
Trying to get better at my hints. All right, trying to make this not such a slam dunk for you every time.
Well, like my initial train of thought when you were like avoiding the evenings and avoiding, poison ivy, I was thinking, oh, okay. Fear of like things being like not poisoning on your skin, but like skin rashes of some kind, and me out in evenings with mosquitoes, some sort of skin.
Okay, you're on the right track. I think you're moving in the right direction. Not bad.
Fear and then the yeast. That's where I don't know. I'm thinking like, so I went immediately to like girl yeast, but now I'm kind of backtracking and thinking like, isn't foot fungus a yeast?
Well, yeah, and those are all associated.
Okay,
sure. So that would fit as well.
So then it would be
athlete's foot would fit in there as well.
Isn't athlete's foot fungus?
Yeah.
/ yeast. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think all of those things are intimately connected to this phobia.
Fear of. Wait, what was the very first thing you would be afraid of?
You'd want to avoid poison ivy or poison oak. All of those things.
Fear of forest injuries.
How does that apply to yeast infections?
Well, because if you're walking through the forest, I'm thinking like, okay, if you're on a hike or something,
forest injuries,
and you get, I didn't know how to like phrase it, and you're walking on a hike, and things that you would be afraid of that would be like if you got lost in the woods.
Oh, no, it is not the fear of forest injuries. It's the fear of itching.
Itching. Oh.
Or it could also be the fear of insects that cause itching, but it's the fear of itching.
Interesting.
So, I mean, yeast infections cause itching, correct?
I didn't go that deep into it. I was looking like, okay, where do you get those?
You didn't go deep into the cavernous hole that is yeast infections?
That is to find the yeast. No. Interesting. It really threw me off when you put making bread in there. Like,
well, hey, itching, right? I mean, I've never had one personally, but I heard they're pretty itchy.
I did not go a layer deeper on that one. I didn't go into the symptomology.
Well, that's the first time we'll discuss deep, dark, cavernous holes in this episode.
And
it will not be the last.
I hope it's the last we discuss yeast. So I'm thinking, but here's my train of thought though. Like, you're walking through a forest, you want your feet to stay dry, right? Because then you can get like athlete's foot, which is horrible injury in the forest. Poison
athlete's
oak.
foot is a horrible injury in the forest?
Dude,
athlete's foot is just something you get from like sports and wearing your shoes too much and sweating.
That was part of the US military's like credo in Vietnam was you have to keep your socks dry, because if your feet got fungal infections and open wounds.
That makes sense.
So I was thinking like forest related
poison
injuries.
Ivy, and you need to avoid anything during the summer.
Mosquitoes.
Evenings in the summer, mosquitoes. And then yeast infections because they're itchy.
Okay.
So all those things are itchy.
That's great.
All right.
That was a good one.
0 for 1. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Now that we've thoroughly dissected that one. Caprostasophobia. Coprastasophobia. Coprastaso phobia.
Okay, what's my hint?
Caprastasophobics might consider Activia to be their favorite food. Thanks, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Fear of not pooping regularly.
Or
pooping.
I'll give it to you. Fear of constipation.
Fear of not pooping.
Fear of constipation. There you go.
Ding,
ding, ding, ding, ding, ding. Good job.
Yeah, I got the pooping one.
So now we've had yeast infections and constipation.
Wow, this is a sexy ass episode.
Woo! It's
Woo!
It's going to get a lot hotter. Too.
Oh, is it going to get moist?
It's going to get very
That's going to get real risky.
Deep, dark,
for
cavernous,
some yeast infections.
Moist holes.
Yeah.
Coming up soon.
Moist holes near you.
Don't worry. They're coming. Oh, yeah.
Ew.
Oh.
Give me it.
You ready for your third one?
Give me it.
1 for 2. Disposophobia. Disposophobia. DISPOSO phobia. Disposophobia.
Okay, what's my hint?
If you have this phobia, you might have every newspaper for the last 30 years. Tons of dollar store stuffed animals and maybe 15 toasters and 27 microwaves.
Fear of throwing anything away.
That is correct. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. That's a phobia that is associated with hoarding.
So would that include fear of throwing away like your own fecal matter and urine? Like fear of disposing of anything?
Ooh, I bet you, I'm sure there's a subset that probably has
or an emesis.
Something like that too.
I mean, yeah.
That's the thing, right? People keep them in jars and like weird stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they'll
That's
weigh them
strange.
and like, yeah.
Well, that's
like
associated
trophies.
with
it's not associated with, it's just
with eating disorders, right?
No, it's not associated with. It's just something that I saw during my practice.
It's not something that is common or somewhat common with people with eating disorders.
No, I mean they hide their behaviors, but this one was particularly unique.
Weird.
Yeah, I know. Everybody, how people process things is really interesting. But I can tell you one thing. There's a lot of trauma behind that.
We've definitely had a theme throughout this. What the fear of. You had to bring in fecal matter. We were just talking about throwing things away, and then all of a sudden it went to like.
Well, because my first thought before that was, well, this one didn't have anything dirty or disgusting in it, and then my second thought was, well,
let's make it that way.
Let's drop something in.
Oh man!
Thanks, babe. That was great.
All right,
That was fun.
2 out of 3.
I feel rejuvenated.
You've done a good job. Well
Thank
done.
you. I hope all of you at home feel very moist about this.
Oh, I had an interview this week, or not an interview, but an application for a job that you had to do a video. And in order for them to make sure that you didn't just send them a generic video of yourself, it was a 60-second video, and you had to start the video with moist and end the video with toodaloo.
How did you start it?
I started it with moist. Kumquat.
Typewriter.
No, I did like 5 of the worst words.
American.
The 5 worst words that people hate to say. I'd started it that way. And then then said something about, so now that I've gone through the 5
But then
worst words,
how did you just go into toodaloo after that?
No, I talked briefly about myself.
No, I meant like at the end.
Yeah, I don't know.
That is really fun.
Like that.
I want that person's job to create those. That'd be great.
Not a bad idea. I liked it. I thought it was kind of fun.
You know what's more fun?
Deep cavernous holes.
Gaping holes with no discernible end.
No discernible end in sight. Like throwing a hot dog down a hallway.
Yes, like many hot dogs down many hallways.
Well, that is the basis for our phobia for today. Kind of. Not really. A little bit.
This is not one of the only phobias with a Pornhub category.
No, it's not. There's quite a few. In fact, probably a number of the ones that we just discussed in What the Fear.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Corporophophobia.
Today we are talking about bathophobia, which is the fear of depths. Basically, right?
Yes.
That's kind of the technical term.
Yeah, because it comes from the Greek bathos, which means depth.
So that's kind of the big overarching one. But we're going to talk specifically more about caves and tunnels, I think. So let's dive into our phobia for today, bathophobia, the fear of caves.
Dive into it.
Hey, Kris.
Hey, Drew.
Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast?
Why, yes, I have.
When we were trying to get this podcast off the ground, we had a lot of questions. Like, how do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen to? How do we make money podcasting? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now just by reading this ad.
Right now?
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now?
That means if you want to get a podcast going and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. Join me and Kris and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. We can't wait to hear your podcast. This was moving her chair in a rhythmic motion.
I was just dead ass staring you in the eyes while I was doing that too.
Like a bed creaking for probably our most sexually suggestive phobia
yet.
It
might be a little sexually suggestive.
Yeah, the fear of deep, dark, cavernous things.
Tunnels, valleys, caves.
Yeah.
Deep trenches.
Tight holes.
Your deep trench.
Deep, dark, gaping tight holes.
Gaping tight holes?
Gaping tight. I don't know.
That's an oxymoron.
That's an oxymoron. You're right.
You can't do that. You can't have your cake and make it gaping too. Why is gaping such a gross word?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, it's like moist or kumquat. It's like it should be one of those. That's a disgusting word.
I guess so. All right, bathophobia. Bathophobia is from the Greek. The etymology is from the Greek bathos.
Bathos? I'm sorry, I said thos.
Which means deep. Means deep. So
Depth.
Fear of the deep, basically. And this phobia, specifically fear of caves. So bathophobia can refer to any depths, right? The depths of the ocean, canyons,
mountain valleys,
tunnels,
trenches,
trenches,
hallways that are extraordinarily long. Like if you
can't see the end of it.
If anybody's ever been on a cruise ship, like when you first board and you're like one of the first to board, sometimes the lights at the ends of the hallway are off until motion is sensed, and it's fucking creepy that you cannot see the rest of the ship that you're on. It's an odd feeling.
So this phobia can be, it's closely associated with some people who have thalassophobia, which is fear of the water.
Right.
It's also associated with some people who have claustrophobia, which is obviously fear of enclosed spaces.
Pick me.
Oh, you have claustrophobia.
Fuck yes.
Yeah, she doesn't like enclosed spaces.
No.
And there's also kind of a little, I don't know if it's an official phobia, but I did see quite a bit of stuff kind of about it, where it was just called spelunkophobia, which is the fear of caves.
Also kind of gross.
Spelunking. You don't like that word?
I believe that's a sexual term too.
You think so? Spelunking? I think it's spunking.
I know that's one, but I think spelunking was warped into
is when you
too.
dive. I could come up with some
cave
ideas
diving.
For what?
Cave diving both ways.
Oh man, are we ever going to get through this episode, or is it just going to be like
this is going to be so sophomoric, y'all?
Reference.
I'm so sorry. It's really bad.
I like it.
No, I know you
good.
do.
It's so good
because you're weird and gross.
You're weird and gross.
I know. Thank you.
So this thing. I think this phobia is one that a lot of us can relate to. I know that I'm not a big fan of being in a place where I don't feel like I can get out.
Right.
And I think caves are kind of one of those things. Caves, tunnels, those are not things that I really want. I've never really felt like, hey, you know what? I want to go like miles into a cave.
Did you ride the subway in Chicago though?
I did. Yeah. The subway didn't bother me so much.
Why? Because you couldn't see in front of you, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I honestly, I didn't even think about the subway when I was doing this episode, but that makes a lot of sense. I can imagine some people would not like that at all. And honestly, there was always the fear when you went in tunnels in the subway that you could get stuck, right?
Yeah.
That you could get
absolutely
trapped. And then you'd have to walk out on the sides, and it's all very dark and enclosed and
dirty
and yeah. So I could definitely see that. And I was never, I think I got over it, but it was never like a comfortable feeling being underground.
Right.
I don't like that.
Even somewhere like the Donner Railroad tunnels. If any of you guys have been to Donner, California, the site where the Donner Party infamously
we live really close
stood
to for like 30 miles. Well, not even, about 30 miles.
About that, yeah. And in
Donner Party of 5.
Donner
Party of 4.
Party of 3. The Donner train tunnels are actual tunnels that used to shelter trains from all of the snow in Donner, so that they could actually pass through.
Get through the pass in the wintertime.
And they still exist, and you can walk through them. And I don't know that it would bother me as much, because some of the parts are broken down and you can kind of see the sunlight, but the parts where train tunnels intercept into the mountains, I don't know that I could do that unless I could see light on the other side.
The other side, yeah.
If I couldn't see light on the other side, if it was that long, like I would not feel comfortable going in there. And so I think about all of the various things that someone who struggles with this phobia might encounter in the normal world. You don't have to go swimming over a giant. I just
thought of something that I did that is super creepy.
What?
I went in the channel between England and France.
Underneath, though, right?
It's underneath the channel. Yeah, it's underneath
the English Channel.
It goes across the English Channel.
Fuck! How deep is that?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I should have done. I should have looked into that. I forgot about it. But
if you forgot about it, it must not have.
Well, at the time, I mean, it's super creepy. But it's big. It's a big tunnel,
right?
And you kind of, I can't even remember if we drive through it. I think it moves you across it somehow. But we were in a bus. So we were in a big bus and then inside the tunnel, and then we went from one side to the other. So yeah, but that's super creepy. That's a long ways. I don't remember how long it is, but I want to say it's like 17 miles or something like that.
Yeah, I don't
miles.
like that.
Yeah, it's a long ways.
And you hit the nail on the head when you said that it's really that kind of sensation that I can't get out of here, even if I really wanted to right now. And that's terrifying. And in our research of this phobia, we learned a whole lot about the horrors and atrocities associated with mining disasters, with people who were trapped in caves after, floods, like the Thailand soccer team.
Well, I've got a whole list of mining disasters that I want to kind of go through, because it's crazy how many there have been. And how many deaths,
deadly,
and how deadly they are, and how like big, like huge amounts of body counts on these disasters, which is crazy. And so that was something that I knew that there was a lot of mining disasters, but I had no idea how crazy the body counts were on some of them. But tell us a little bit more about the phobia. Like, what's the kind of the driving factor in these phobias?
So there's some speculation that the causes may, of course, be a little mixture of a few things. One thing being that our depth perception is an internal cue for survival. And so having that ability to perceive depth kind of is a protective mechanism built into our brain, right? Studies from the visual cliff experiments, which I learned about early on, and it was one of the studies that really fascinated me with psychology and development, is that they can take the toddlers and almost newborns, anything that can crawl or kind of ambulate on its own, and they will put them in this specialized ramp where part of the ramp is a glass floor, and underneath the glass floor is a picture of a great depth. And they will see what the babies do when they first approach this ledge, basically. And it's called
a fake ledge.
It's a fake ledge.
It's just
they're gonna step out onto the plexiglass, and everything's gonna be fine. But it's basically a test of.
Is that a bad thing to like teach a kid that they can walk out in the middle? So then the next time that they're on a cliff,
it's
they
a little
just walk out.
It's a little different than like
to their deaths.
It's a little different than
like a bad idea.
Like Baby Albert, right? Baby Albert, they conditioned Baby Albert to be afraid of small fluffy things, right? This is a little different. This was testing the natural visual instinct in something that didn't need to be taught, right? So something that became inherent. So are babies naturally afraid of ledges? Do they have the ability to have depth perception and to know that falling off of this is a bad idea?
It's bad to get close to this edge.
Any of you that have had children know there's a period in babydom where they don't have a fucking clue, right? They'll just and walk off and kind of tumble. And so there's this period.
Well, there's a heights thing too, because we know they climb, like when they start climbing, they can climb up to the top of like jungle gyms and all kinds of stuff. You're always having to like watch them. All of a sudden you look up and they're at the top.
And then there's something that happens, and it doesn't necessarily have to have an event to make it happen or a negative experience. It's just something within the brain's development that all of a sudden understands this could hurt if I fell off of here. And it's the same thing with this visual cliff experiment. There's a period in our development where they see a baby's hesitation to approach the cliff all of a sudden, when before they weren't as hesitant or weren't as cautious. So it's really interesting that truly is a piece of our survival development that has kind of held on over the generations.
Interesting.
Right? I also...
By the way, the channel is 31 miles long.
Ugh.
31 miles.
That's like the Atchafalaya Bridge. Lots of people hated the bridge, but I didn't mind that.
So you go in these trains that are like high-speed trains.
Sure.
And they drive you into them, and so they move fast. So it doesn't take...
But what if you get stuck?
I know. Oh, and it happens. And it has happened before.
And you just sit there and you're just staring at the walls, and you know that there's hundreds of thousands of gallons of water just sitting above you.
That's weird.
You know, I don't like that.
Think about being trapped in a subway too, and it happens all the time. The trains, and it used to happen in Chicago when I lived there too. You would all of a sudden just get a thing on the radio that was, we're going to have delay. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
Because you could never hear what they were saying, but you just heard delay and you're like, fuck. I'm gonna be late for work. Or,
Delay.
you know, I just want to get home. But you'd sit there sometimes for 20, 30 minutes, you know, not moving underneath, you know, or sometimes longer, you know, if they had a train accident or something happened, you know, you can't
look at your phone.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, because you're under, you know, cell phone coverage. So I mean, that's that kind of stuff is really scary. I don't like it.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get us off track. But
no, it's okay.
It's 31 miles, not. Yeah.
It's still awful. And again, it's that evolutionarily advantageous fear of darkness, of heights, of, you know, kind of those things that make us very vulnerable.
Right. Aquaphobia, which was our very first episode, which we lost. It's gone.
Shucks. That one fucking sucked,
I know
y'all.
you hated that episode.
I hated that episode. I hate like all the early.
It would have been nice to still have
No.
But
it's
that was
chlorophobic.
But it was definitely this phobia relates to that one as well. We
Absolutely.
talked about you know, claustrophobia and all those, but aquaphobia it relates to that one as well, the fear of darkness.
Right. And this fear, just like others, can develop through a trauma paired with a genetic predisposition towards anxiety, which that's me in a nutshell. Like, I have a predisposition towards anxiety and, you know, enclosed spaces. When we went to the tombs in Virginia City, you remember when we went to the tomb at the Virginian. And we went to that
underneath, kind of in the, like, their basement.
Yeah, I did not like that. Yeah. I did not like that feeling of not being able to leave when I wanted. I did not like the darkness, because I don't know that folks who haven't been like in a mine shaft or in total darkness really know what it means to have an absence of light. Yeah. It's terrifying.
Well, I was going to bring up Virginia City for another reason. There's hundreds and hundreds of miles of mines underneath the city. So, you know, it was at one point it was the richest city in the world,
right, per
capita. Most millionaires per capita in the entire world in the late 1800s, because of the mining. There was so much mining going on. And Nevada, where we live, is a huge mining state. You know, you go out towards Elko and even a lot of places around Reno, there are a lot of mines, and that's just tunnels and tunnels and tunnels and these shafts that just go everywhere. Man, there's a lot of good
shafts.
There's a lot of good sex words. Tunnels and shafts. Lots of great sex words in this episode.
Depths. I know. And as we go deeper into it, we keep uncovering more.
We're never gonna get through this episode.
No, we're not. We keep uncovering more and more interesting things about this fear. Especially interesting, I found, was that William Shatner of Star Trek fame is a bathophobic.
Oh, really?
He is very afraid of depths, and if he cannot see the bottom of something, no matter how, you know, deep it actually may be, you could tell him like it's 10 feet deep, but if he cannot see the bottom, it is very uncomfortable. I don't get this feeling in like Tahoe, which is interesting to me. It doesn't scare me how deep it is.
Yeah, Lake Tahoe is one of the deepest lakes. I think Crater Lake might be the deepest in the country, but I think Tahoe is like right up there. It's one of the top couple.
So
it goes down to what, like 2,000, like 2,500 feet, or
all I remember,
they don't even know how deep it is in some spots.
All I remember was if you drained Lake Tahoe, you could cover California, the entire state, in 2 inches of water. I learned that on when I was like 10, when I first visited Tahoe.
Yeah, I mean, it's super deep. It's so deep that I think there are definitely parts that they don't even know how deep it is.
Right.
And there's a stratus there somewhere where
gravity no longer works.
Yeah, dead bodies will stop and float at a certain lake where they won't go down any further.
So what I'm circling around to say is Nevada is probably not somewhere where a bathophobic would feel super comfortable, knowing there's so many tunnels, right. There's mountain valleys, canyons, everywhere,
valleys,
caves, there's trenches, there's a big military presence, there's a military base out in the desert, obviously. And so there's a lot of opportunity here to run into kind of those endless voids in Nevada.
Well, and you look at all the things, there are those weird holes in the ocean.
Right? Oh my God. Like the big blue one that just never ends.
Yeah, just big old gnarly cave under the water. That's, and they've got, and you think about places like the Grand Canyon or places like, those are all things that Bathophobics would be not a big fan of. Like they would probably steer away.
I don't think that they would join the U.S. Speleological Society either.
Speleological?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
That's the Spelunking Society.
Oh, that's
the Speleological Society, or otherwise called as caving clubs. There are 4,000, they call caves grottos.
Grottos?
45,000.
Like Hefner's grotto?
Exactly.
Playboy grotto?
Grottos in the U.S. And so...
Hefner explored some deep caves in his grotto,
yeah,
too.
He did. Yeah. He found the widest gaps. Maybe
not the widest.
But Bathophobics would
he brought in, new girls all the time.
God, I like how you're justifying fucking Hugh Hefner and his gaping holes over here.
In his grottos. He was just a spelunker.
Yeah, professional. So Bathophobics would really seek to avoid anything that would resemble a depth in order to relieve or alleviate the anxiety that they fear. So they would greatly limit places that they would go. They wouldn't go into like back rooms where there would be like a darkness at the end, places like that. If a grocery store's lights turned off, not seeing the back of it would be terrifying. So it would be really paralyzing to have this. And I have a little taste of it and I don't like it. So my heart goes out to people who struggle with this fear. Also, too, we see another kind of thread that runs through this fear is the endlessly falling dreams. Have you ever had that?
Oh, yeah.
So endlessly falling dreams have the same kind of concept, this blackness, this darkness, this kind of end that we never hit, even though we expect it. And then after a while, it's like, we lose ourselves in it, which I find really interesting because both of the movies that we watched indicated in it that part of cave diving and all of that, I almost call it muff diving. I'm so sorry. Cave diving. It's so dirty. This episode is so dirty. I can't stop. Cave diving.
She's a professional, folks.
I am not.
Sorry, where were you going with that? You're a little red now all of a sudden. So when I was a kid, we're not going to finish this. We're not going to finish that thought because it just went away.
I can't anymore. I'm laughing too hard.
When I was a kid, I think I was about probably 14 years old. I went down to visit my aunt and uncle in Pensacola. No, they were in Panama City. And we drove to a springs, kind of a hot springs or whatever kind of place that was basically the mouth of a river that went all the way to the ocean and in Florida. And it was where they filmed Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh yeah. You told me about
which was really cool. At the time, I don't think I appreciated it as much as I would now. But I remember the big lagoon area, the big area where it was crystal clear. The water was beautiful. But if you go back towards the mouth of it, it goes down into a big cave system. And I remember reading a bunch about it, and they did not know how far back it went. They would divers would go back and back and back and back and back and still never found the end of it. So these caves would just go and go and go and go. And I remember thinking how terrifying just diving that would be. Divers, people who are big scuba divers and stuff who do that kind of stuff, cave diving, underwater, to me, that combines so many fears.
Oh, so many.
Just going through caves above ground is kind of freaky, but doing it underwater as well. No.
Well, and to circle back around, that adds to the disorientation. And we talked about a couple of episodes, when the brain is in an absence of some sort of a stimulus, a novel stimulus, it creates one. And so we start to hallucinate, and we start to become delusional, and we start to see things. Right. And then we're talking, low oxygen levels because caves do go very far back. And just like the soccer team that got trapped, their cave issue was that they were 1.9 miles back into the cave, And there had been a monsoon rainstorm that had come in unexpectedly, and it was very out of season and had flooded 3 chambers. So it had cut off any oxygen from getting into where they were, and they were running out of oxygen and running out of time. And their rescue efforts were fascinating. And you talk about cave diving and how difficult that would be and how many fears that combines. Well, in order to get these guys out, they had to cave dive because it was flooded in these chambers, with 13 people who had never cave dove before.
Have never scuba dived.
So how are you? And
how
this
are you
is
get those kids out.
This is like level 10. And one of the people that happened to be one of the professional like experts that came in for this rescue mission, he happened to be an anesthesiologist, and so he was one of the ones who went in during the rescue effort once they found out that they were in there and that they were alive, and actually dosed the children with Xanax and ketamine to the point where they would not pass out, but be so calm that they would not panic. And thus also when they did that, they put their hands behind their backs and they taped their arms so that they couldn't thrash. And then they put them on these like really bendy like boards, and basically the scuba dive, and then they put a big full face mask around them so that they could have oxygen. And then the scuba divers 2 at a time pulled 1 at a time out.
And just dove them under.
And navigated them through these very narrow tunnels, some only 2 feet wide.
Wow.
While they're dosed up on ketamine, because ketamine kept them calm without suppressing their blood pressure or their breathing. But it also had the effect of memory dissolution. So they didn't recall going through that experience, which also kept them calm enough to be able to have oxygen that lasted enough time to get them out, and also to not panic. During something that was the anesthesiologist rescuer gave them a 0% chance.
That's so crazy.
All 13 lived.
It's amazing. And you know, like as we were going through this, we started talking about like disasters and things that happened with, you know, I remembered being a kid and the baby Jessica thing where she fell down the well. It was an 8-inch well, you know, in Midland, Texas, and she fell down and it took them 56 hours to get her out, and it was all over the news. It was such a big story when they finally rescued her, you know. But then I started looking into like mining accidents, and working in a mine is like on the list of my top things that I would never want to do. Oh my
gosh,
like,
yeah.
It just sounds so freaky.
And that's a top profession here in Nevada. There's tons of mines around us.
Out in, especially out in Elko, out towards the eastern part of the state. It's a mining town. I mean, they have a huge mining convention there every year. It's a big deal. And a lot of people, I've met and known a lot of people who've worked in the mines out there.
I could not do it.
Which is crazy. But I was looking at mining accidents, and like one of the Wales has had a couple of major ones where in 1913, there was an explosion that killed 439 miners. Worst mining accident that's ever happened in the UK. Just in 2010, there was one in West Virginia that killed another place where there's been tons of mining accidents. I tell you talk about a haunted state. West Virginia's got to be
really
loaded.
Lots of disasters.
There's been so many disasters like that there. But 29 out of 31 miners were killed. Coal dust explosion. Worst mining disaster in the U.S. since 1970. There was also one in 2006 that killed 13 miners in West Virginia. But India, there was one that killed, let's see, back in, I don't even have a date for this one, but 380 miners.
Oh my gosh.
7 million gallons of water per minute flooded into the cave.
My God, they drowned.
The roof caved in.
That's what could have happened in that tunnel.
Oh yeah, I know, right? South Africa, there was one in 1960 that 900 pillars caved in. And this was 600 feet below ground. Some of these were as deep as like the Chilean mine disaster, which we know
a lot
just
about,
happened not too long ago, was 2,333 feet below the ground.
Oh, that's insane.
Which is insane. But the one in South Africa killed 435 people.
Oh my gosh.
Crushed to death, and others were suffocated by methane gas.
Oh,
like big body counts, man. Pretty gnarly.
Yeah, this is a heavy hitting fear.
But that Chilean mine disaster, I think a lot of us followed that, kind of. I think there was a billion.
How long
there was
ago
a
was
billion
that?
people that watched it on TV.
How long ago was that?
I want to say it was 2000. Gosh, I forgot to write down the date, but it was just in the last 10 years.
Because the Thai soccer team was a year ago in June.
Oh, really? Was that recent?
A year ago.
I thought it was a couple years ago. That's crazy. I think the Chilean one was, I want to say it was like 2011 or 12 or 13. I don't know. It was in the last 10 years. But 33 men were trapped 2,300 feet below the ground and 3 miles from the entrance to the mine. And they were drilling down and drilling down and drilling down, trying to find these guys. 17 days after the accident, they pulled up. They were boring holes. Hashtag boring holes. Hashtag boring holes, people. This is a great boring holes episode.
Oh, this is
hashtag your boring holes and post them for us. But they attached a note to the bottom of the drill.
And
the miners that were down underground and said, all 33 of us are fine in the shelter. That's what it said.
But basically like that, they were pulling the drill up because they were giving up, right?
Well, they were still trying.
Okay.
They were just trying to drill down and find them. And
That's
they were rescued 69 days later. That was 69 days after they were trapped down there for the whole time. 69 days, and finally brought them up one at a time in like
in a tube, which again, like terrifying. But do you know how they got them up? Like, did they
built a special capsule thing that they
like how did they keep their emotions calm?
So they all credited. So all 33 of these miners credited their faith in God. And
wow.
Because there was one of the miners was a preacher, was a pastor as well as a miner, and him and a couple of the older men that were miners that had been doing this for a long time. They basically just kept them going, kept everybody going, praying, writing things, down there. They wrote things on the walls. They created like little mini, altars and things like that to kind of pray.
The Thai soccer team created the altars too. They just went back into the caves for the first time since then and saw their altars and everything.
So
that's
crazy.
Fascinating because the treatment for this is actually mindfulness-based stress reduction. So those things,
focusing on other things and being able to
kind of sit outside of the uncomfortable feelings of yourself and manage them appropriately and effectively.
So
that's
crazy.
Such a testament to the human spirit.
Well, let's this is a ripe for not just sexual innuendo, but also fears in horror movies.
Yeah. Lots of boring holes.
There's lots of boring holes in this episode, and there are lots of boring holes coming up in our movies. We're going to start out with a movie that I had never heard of until I started researching this movie. And I actually really, really, really enjoyed it. It's on Netflix, and it's going to be our honorable mention for today. And that is 2014's. Is that what it was? 2014? 2014's As Above, So Below.
My name is Scarlett Marlowe, and I'm a student in urban archaeology.
370 feet beneath this point is a hidden chamber
that might contain a critical missing piece of our history.
How are we supposed to get down there?
Catacombs. There are 200 miles of tunnels right underneath our feet.
They're holding the remains of 6 million corpses.
Stop. This is the Empire of the Dead.
These are human bones. We go through here?
Let's do it.
Keep slow and steady, yeah?
I think I'm stuck.
Just breathe with me, please. It's okay.
What was that?
I think I am. What the hell do we do now, huh?
We can't go back. We should just keep moving. Tell me we didn't just go in a circle.
It's exactly the same.
No, everything's upside down.
What happened to the entrance?
Wait, there's something here.
Oh my God.
What the hell is this?
When I was a kid, we had a piano that looked exactly like this. I used to play it all the time. The A4 key was messed up. What's going on? Can you read that?
According to mythology, that's the inscription over the gates of hell. And they should be made to crawl on their bellies and enter the kingdom of darkness.
Did you hear that? Is somebody there? What's happening to us?
Dad?
Don't destroy that! It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault!
So 2014's As Above, So Below on Netflix right now. You can watch it. Really enjoyed this movie. I mean, I thought there were some things. It definitely could have been a little tighter. There was some plot holes and things like that. But the story,
There was plot holes.
there was plot holes.
There was a lot of holes
Damn
in the
it.
story.
Can we stop for 1 second?
Okay, I'll try.
Jeez.
I'll be good.
All right. That's true. It was directed by John Eric Dowd, who also did the Poughkeepsie tapes, which I just watched for the first time a few weeks ago, and it was really good. Not quite as crazy, and I had always heard.
Are
that
you
it was
just
super
desensitized?
scandalous. Maybe I'm just desensitized, but I didn't think it was that bad. I actually thought it was a pretty good movie. And then he also did Devil, which is an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and I have not seen that one, but I did just buy it recently, so I have it. I own it. I just haven't watched it yet. But I really enjoyed this. I thought it was like Goonies for adults, which, you know, it's like if Goonies and National Treasure had like Hell Baby.
Had a Hellboy baby.
Had a Hell Baby. Yeah, that's what this movie was like. It's like an adult Goonies. You know, it was fun.
That's
I really
a good
enjoyed
description.
it. But let me give a quick synopsis. Archaeologist Scarlett Marlowe has devoted her whole life to finding one of history's greatest treasures, Flamel's Philosopher's Stone. According to legend, the artifact can grant eternal life and turn any metal into gold. When she learns that the stone is hidden underground in the Catacombs of Paris, she assembles a crew to guide and document her historic mission. As they begin their descent, the team members have no way of knowing that they are entering their own personal hell. Which the entire movie was shot in the catacombs. I mean, there's parts where they're up above ground or whatever, but they were actually filming in the catacombs, which
is way creepier.
The French authorities actually gave them, I think it was the first, somebody said, I think I saw somewhere that it was the first film
with
that
permission.
the French authorities allowed to be filmed in the catacombs, which is super cool.
That's insane. That makes it so much scarier.
There were very little use of props. The actors had to use the environment that was around them. Really difficult for the cast because there was no electricity, you know, the crew and the cast and everything, no electricity, no cell phones. These are centuries old tunnels. And if you're not familiar with the catacombs, it's like a tomb for like 6 million people.
Tell us the origin real quick of the catacombs.
Well, basically, they were having trouble disposing of bodies in Paris, and
it was getting smelly.
It was getting smelly, and it's just there was, you know, all the cemeteries were overrun and things like that, and so they decided to build these basically giant underground tombs and
mass graves.
And they are just, they're just bones and skeletons, and you know, I've been to Paris twice, and I've never been to the catacombs, which I'd only spent a brief amount of time.
You make me sick.
But next time that is on the top of the list because I don't know how I for whatever reason didn't make it there.
Oh, you make me sick.
Between the Louvre and Notre Dame and all that.
You were too busy on your moped listening to Coldplay.
That was in Rome.
So much better.
It was in Rome. It wasn't in Paris.
Oh, pip diddlio.
But I didn't just listen to Coldplay. Good music too. But yeah, so this movie, so basically, and I loved the premise of this because I'm a big history guy and I love
It was fun.
and I love that it kind of gave a little bit of like that like hidden treasure mystery, a little bit of.
She was way too obsessive and definitely trying to process the grief of her father.
she's an archaeologist. Her dad was going for this Flamel's Philosopher's Stone. I keep wanting to say Sorcerer's Stone because of it's the same thing. So right in Harry Potter, they talk about Nicholas Flamel's Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone, depending on if you're in the UK or in the US.
Right.
The UK version was called the Philosopher's Stone. For some reason, apparently they didn't think the US market would like Philosopher's
They do
Stone.
that all the time with
We're not smart
movies.
enough. We're not smart enough to talk about philosophy. I don't know. But and Flamel was this famous alchemist, and alchemists were always trying to find these secret elements that would be able to transfer things into gold or to be able to solve
or heal
any illnesses, right? Or any sicknesses or things like leprosy or whatever. So, he supposedly had this stone that was able to grant, it had these magical powers basically. And so Scarlet is the main character, and her father had been searching for this thing. And so now she's taken it upon herself to go on these adventures trying to find this magical stone. Right. So basically, without really diving into the whole movie, they go into the catacombs, and she starts following this kind of map and trail that she's on. But it's all an allegory for basically Dante's Inferno. They start going through each layer of the layers of hell, right? The circles of hell, the nine layers or 9 circles of Dante's Inferno.
And they do in the movie kind of show them going down this one tunnel several times, and I didn't realize that until that was
right.
That was it.
Some things keep repeating,
right? That was it. Until you told me that this was the allegory.
Yeah, so she ends up going down with a friend of hers who she had done some adventure stuff with, who's kind of a boyfriend-ish guy.
Clockmaker dude
named George. And then
he did not want to go.
This guy Benji is a documentarian who's kind of following them on this journey. And then they meet this guy Papillon, who's kind of their cave guide, who him and his girlfriend.
Someone was like,
down.
You should go find Papillon.
Go find Papillon.
And then they went and they found him.
We found out later that was the guy who she encountered. The guy that told her to go find Papillon
was the one in the cave.
Was the one in the
catacomb.
No, the one in the burning car. That Papillon.
No,
he was already dead. So that was who told her to go find Papillon, was the already dead guy
in the car.
Yeah, yeah. And then they had another guy, Zed, that was with them. And then down in the cave, they interacted with this dude
dead, baby.
Named Latope. I know I kept wanting Zed to die so I could say it, but he didn't die.
So the Latope guy, that threw me off entirely because this guy was supposedly a friend of Papillon's that had gone down into the catacombs into this one area that, was a bad area. Like people didn't go there, basically, is what they said. And he had gone there and not returned for 2 years. And they're walking in the catacombs.
He was dead.
I know, obviously, but they acted like he fucking chilled out with them for like 3 layers.
Yeah, some of the reactions
asked.
Worked.
No one,
the best.
No one fucking asked.
But if you look at this in terms of the,
hey, bro, have you eaten? Have you slept? Are you natural? No.
No, I think at that point
sense.
They're already starting to experience weird stuff as they go through, and I think if you look at it as the allegory that it is, it's this kind of mimicking of Dante's Inferno. They were being led in Dante's Inferno by Virgil, who was the famous Roman poet. And I think Latope in this was kind of that character that was kind of leading them through and kept telling them that they had to go lower and lower, lower in the catacombs if they ever wanted to find their way out, they had to
go lower.
They had to keep going lower. And in Dante's Inferno, once Dante enters hell, he's unable to leave the same way he came, which is exactly what happens with these guys. He must continue downward
in order
through hell, where the only exit is at the very bottom of hell, which is exactly what happens to this group.
Yep.
Right. They have to keep going lower, keep entering each layer, and each layer gets, more and more
guided by this dude who's been lost for 2 years. And I'm sitting there thinking the whole time, did your mothers teach you nothing? Did you remember nothing? Like, no, even if it's a friendly stranger or a former
He was a friend.
No, he was not a friend. He was not a friend.
Well, interestingly enough,
And they
so
acted
at one point,
so
he
chill.
did take them down and show them where they were supposed to go, and then at one point they get down towards the end of the movie, and he shows up again, kind of suddenly,
and no one
and
questions
Susie, the girl,
No one.
kind of goes,
Drives me
like,
crazy.
She's like trying to help him, kind of, and like, are you okay, Latrobe? Like, can I?
No, I'm
help
not
you, blah,
okay.
blah?
I'm dead. I've been here for 2 years.
So she goes close to him, and something bad's gonna happen, and she grabs him and just starts, he grabs her and just beats her to death against the ground, But what's interesting is that that's about the 7th ring, right? And
Right.
the 7th ring is violence.
Oh,
So a lot of these rings that they go down, a lot of the
wasn't
levels
that
they
the
go
one
down.
where? No, that was the other one. I'm sorry.
So in Dante's Inferno, you have limbo, lust. The rings go like this. First ring was limbo, then lust, then gluttony, then greed or avarice, wrath or anger, heresy, violence, fraud, and treachery. So those are the rings. And this movie, I don't know. I couldn't quite figure out if it corresponded perfectly to each one. Like if there was a little marker for each one of these rings.
It'd be interesting to go back and watch.
But definitely a few of them definitely did.
Right.
Which I think is really interesting. What a great concept for a movie. Like,
It's insane.
I loved it. And as far as the cave stuff goes, like the fact that they actually filmed this in the catacombs is really amazing because, and it's a found footage type movie, right? It's a found footage movie. We got like a documentarian, and then they've got like cameras on their helmets as they're going through. So it's definitely got that found footage feel to it. Well, it was a found footage. I guess it's not just found footage feel, but I thought the concept was a really interesting one and really fun. It's like if you made National Treasure a horror movie, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed it a lot.
I did too.
I would have liked to have seen it done a little bit. I mean, it could have been done better.
Absolutely.
And scary wise, like it built, I watched it for the first time. You had fallen asleep and I watched it at like 11 o'clock and watched the whole thing in bed in a pitch dark room. And it was actually pretty,
terrifying,
pretty scary. I was very like chills and freaked out about it. But I think the second time I watched it, I was like, yeah, it's scary, but not crazy.
No. And I think knowing that it's filmed entirely in the catacombs makes it more intense and more interesting. I found myself questioning, like, is there anything that I care to see enough to dodge linebacker foreign police and crawl through 1,000-year-old bone piles on my phone arms, past a scene straight out of Hereditary with some people like doing some satanic weird ritual shit.
Weird ritual shit going on down there, which again, that was probably in either limbo or lust, the first 2 rings somewhere in there, because they were all naked and they were like having some sort of cult thing going
probably
on.
lust, I would
Very
say.
strange.
And then getting stuck inside like that, it collapses. Can I get a hell no, please? I cannot think of one
Well, it collapses
thing.
behind them too, so they can't get out. So
Right.
now they're trapped. They keep having to go lower because they keep not being able to go.
And they keep having
can't
to
go back.
And they keep having to go into the area that the other guy was like, no, I refuse to go there. No, I refuse. That place is bad, and they have to go in there because that's the only way.
Well, and we find in the very end, right towards the end, they get all the way down in the catacombs. They keep going lower and lower and lower, and they're losing members of their team as they go.
Yeah.
And in the end, we've got Papillon. We're down basically at the ninth layer of hell. And he dies. He sees a burning car, right, which is symbolic of something that he had done to a friend, hadn't rescued him or was being punished for something. And this car kind of sucks him in, and he gets burned. And he gets sucked down into the ground, and then it leaves his legs sticking up out of the ground, which is exactly how Virgil describes in the 8th circle of hell. Virgil states, "Out of the mouth of each one," this is in Dante's Inferno, "out of the mouth of each one there protruded the feet of the transgressor, and the legs up to the calf. The rest within remained."
Oh my gosh.
So it's I love that they pulled little things like that out of Dante's Inferno.
I thought that was horrible. Just
Really
watching like this person's feet just flailing. Oh,
it's really cool.
No.
Really cool. And
Dante,
so I love that. I love that they
up.
have those little things that they mixed in a lot of kind of symbolic things from Dante, and I thought that
it also got a little national treasure at the end too, where they like almost find it, and then the girl like has to figure out a puzzle where you remove a rock, and if not, everything else caves in on you, and somehow she knows that it's a pterodactyl hinge or something like that. There is a lot of plot holes there. Felt very national treasury there at the end. Like I wish they would have just kind of fucked that part off and then just gotten the hell out of there. I kind of would have admired that a bit more.
And again, in Dante too, like you have this it's an allegory of the sinner, right? Going through this thing. And the only way the sinner can escape from hell is ultimately admitting their sins and truly atoning for their sins, right? So what happens in the end? We see this big giant hole, right? There's 3 of them left. It's Scarlet and George and Zed, right? And Scarlet goes, we have to jump into this hole. We have to admit to ourselves what it is that we've done, right? What is it that
we're most afraid of?
Rectification, right? She talks about rectification. We have
rectification.
Rectification.
Sorry, it'd been a while.
We have to do rectification and jump in the dark hole.
The gaping hole.
The big gaping hole. So they had to admit and confess these sins that they had committed.
Well, and confront their fears.
And then take the step, that leap of faith at the end, right? To jump into this hole they didn't even know where it was going to.
Because they couldn't see.
To survive. And when they get to the bottom, they see another hole in the ground. It's like a manhole, and they push it. They push it and
down and over.
And then they come up right side up. Right. So they've basically been in the upside down kind of world, and then they go right side up. Which is all very much like how Dante's Inferno ended as well. So I like that. I thought it was really cool. Cool concept.
Made me super uncomfortable.
Very claustrophobic.
If you have bathophobia, you do not want to watch this. It made me uncomfortable.
The catacombs with all the bones and the skulls, and all of that stuff was all real. Really a cool movie. Check it out on Netflix.
Yeah, worth a watch.
Definitely worth a watch. I really enjoyed it, and I think Ben Feldman, who played George, was on Mad Men, and apparently he was very claustrophobic. And
I'm with you, Ben.
They had to take like big breaks in between scenes, and
so you could go above,
for him to like hyperventilate and
and have a panic attack because it's so disorienting down there, and it's awful. I'm sure that they all experience that panic and those moments of intense kind of survival fear.
Yep. So that was As Above, So Below, which that title is obviously that was something that was said in. It was something that was used in a lot of religious terminology. It was a lot of religious history and a lot of occult history, but it also was based off of the Lord's Prayer, where it's on earth as it is in heaven. Sorry, I couldn't think of it. That's said in the Lord's Prayer.
Give us this day our daily bread.
So that was where the title.
And forgive us our trespassing.
That's right.
And forgive those who trespassed against us.
Which is a great way to end that, because that's exactly how that ended, kind of.
It was.
Yeah.
And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
That's right. So As Above, So Below. Good movie. Make you freaked out about climbing into tunnels.
Yeah.
Into dark caves.
Kind of makes me want to go visit the catacombs on the outside.
For sure. I would like to go check it out, though. You would totally go to it.
I would not.
Yeah,
I'd go for like a little.
You would love it.
No. I'm good.
All right. But now we're going to dive into a hell of a cave movie.
This fucking movie made me so uncomfortable. And I told you that like it's a popular 5 minutes
this
in.
This movie's gotten a lot of accolades, and rightly so. It's a really cool movie. So let's take a deep dive into 2005's The Descent. Roll the trailer.
And now our feature presentation.
Now just give me a smile.
Juno, are you sure we're going the right way?
I've never been lost in my life.
There's only one way out of this chamber, and that's down the pipe.
I'm stuck. I can't breathe.
Sarah, You have to calm down. I'm coming back. Okay? Okay. Okay, move. Now! This is not good, guys.
Can we get out of here? Which way?
I don't know.
Sarah thinks she saw someone back
So
there.
what?
I don't think I saw someone. I saw someone. No, you heard something and you saw what you wanted to see. It's the dark. It plays tricks on people. Ah! Please! Is there anybody batteries on our lights will run out.
The Descent. I want to give let me give some of the taglines for this movie. This had a number of taglines.
Ooh, give it to me.
The scariest movie in Earth. Afraid of the Dark. You will be. July 2005.
Waka waka.
When you're trapped 2 miles underground, there are many ways to lose your mind. Claustrophobia, disorientation, hallucination, fear. Scream your last breath. Face your deepest fear. Afraid of the dark? You will be.
Do you think they had a hard time coming up with taglines because of the sexual innuendo?
The deepest hole on earth.
Like,
that's what your mom.
Descend into your deepest fear.
We said we were going to avoid saying your mom.
Yeah, you were like, it gets old. No, it doesn't. It never gets old. Your mom gets old. That's who gets old.
Oh, damn.
Just kidding.
All female cast, which is really cool. There was only one dude in the beginning, Paul, who was the husband.
The douchey husband who was...
Yeah, who was,
meandering around.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to look up. I didn't write down the synopsis. So let me read this real quick. Synopsis: a year after a severe emotional trauma, Sarah goes to North Carolina to spend some time exploring caves with her friends. After descending underground, the women find strange cave paintings and evidence of an earlier expedition, then learn they are not alone. Underground predators inhabit the crevices, and they have a taste for
Why'd
human
you smile?
flesh.
He smiled, you guys.
Just
I'm calling him out.
Crevices?
You smiled as you said the word.
I smiled because I knew you were going to start laughing.
Because you smiled.
Crevices, deep dark crevices.
So I like this movie because first off, it kind of has a little bit of that feeling of she is descending into her own, the madness of her own grief, the grief around losing her relationship and losing her child in a horrible
the beginning
pipe accident.
The beginning is the girls are traversing
a pipe accident.
Her friends, and oh my gosh, just never ends. The girls are traversing these rapids, and
because they have extreme friendship.
Yeah, they have an extreme friendship.
Extreme friendship.
Extreme friends.
Woo.
So we kept saying during the movie,
extreme friends.
These are extreme friends.
I'm like, if anybody wants to be
these
my
girls
friend,
are snapping into a Slim Jim.
Yeah,
all together and pounding some dew.
Oh, do you remember the Power Thirst videos?
Yeah.
That's these girls drank Power Thirst and they lifted 1,000 babies.
Yep.
Like that's what they did on their girl trips.
So they were, so they traversed these rapids. They're in the beginning and woo, and they all made it down the rapids. And Sarah and her husband and daughter were on the bank, and they go, they all pack up and they go home. They starting to go home, and Sarah and her husband Paul are chatting in the car, and he just all of a sudden not paying attention and veers off and hits a truck and some pipes.
And suddenly we're watching Final Destination.
Yeah, and it's very Final Destination moment. pipe goes through husband's head, goes through baby's head in the back, toddler's head in the back seat.
Just awful.
And then we wake up and Sarah's in the hospital and she's coming to realize with one of her friends that she's lost her husband and her daughter.
It's going to be a very dark time.
She is filled with grief. She is very emotional, freaking out. And then next scene, some time has passed. We're in the Appalachian Mountains.
I think it's a year.
We're in the Appalachian Mountains. We go from I'm guessing they were over in England or Europe or something, and now they're over in the Appalachian Mountains in the U.S. And they're on a trip, getting all their girls,
kind of led by who? What was her name?
All the extreme friends get together.
Extreme friendship.
And they're gonna go caving. They're gonna go spelunking. They're gonna go do some cave.
Also,
some cave diving.
Which the homegirl that set this whole thing up was kind of sketchy from the beginning, because when the death happened, she kind of ran off and you could tell something was up.
Well, before they left their rafting deal, we saw a look between Juno is her name.
Juno,
and Paul, who was the husband. So
kind
of got a feeling right away that it wasn't a real secret that she was banging Paul. You could tell that there was something.
They were banging.
Little twinkle there, and in the conversation in the car, Paul and Sarah were she was asking why he was so distant, and so there were some things they were starting to talk about that,
and she was starting to connect the dots,
and then this happened. The deaths happened. The extreme friends all get together and they're like, we're gonna go dive in these caves, and one of the
not dive. We're gonna go walk in these caves, basically.
Well, they're gonna climb, do all the crazy stuff,
extreme friendship things inside of this cave that was supposedly a very well explored and like intermediate cave system.
Right. Juno had told them that this was like a certain cave system, and
Juno's a fucking liar and a cheater.
Holly, who was like the extremest of the extreme friends, was really pissed about this because she was like, it's going to be so fucking boring. This is like a tourist trap. Like we need,
she's like, I know lame. This.
So they go and they find the cave, they dive down, they get down there, and then pretty quickly realize this was not the cave that Juno had said they were going to.
Right.
They decided to go to a cave system that nobody had ever explored, and Juno kind of tricked
them
all into
going.
That
was
off the map. Nobody would know they're there.
And apparently if you're going into a cave system, you have to register or not have to, but it's advised that you register your team or whoever's going with you with like the forestry department, so that way if you go missing, they kind of know which cave system.
So they explore. You register yourself.
She didn't do that.
So they the friend registered them with the cave that Juno told them they were going to be at, not with the one that was off the map.
So no one's going to be looking for their bodies.
Do you remember what you thought cave explorers were called during the episode? You said, what are cave explorers called again? Boogers?
Boogers?
It was like spelunkers.
I remember it was
boogers.
So okay,
so they're cave boogers. They're cave boogers. They're exploring these caves.
Do you want to know why that went through my head?
Why did that go through your head?
Because
they're going to be cave boogers forever from now on. By the way,
this ties back around to you, so that's fine. So this is where I got that from, because the day that you got pulled over,
we're going to bring up that story?
In Tahoe,
I got pulled over by. Okay, I don't think we've ever told the story.
Nope, not on the podcast. So let me tell it.
Man.
So we're up in Lake Tahoe and we're cruising around the lake, and I think the speed limit's like 35, and Drew's maybe going 40. Goes around a corner, picking his nose, and doesn't notice a cop. Well, before I even passed the cop, I was digging deep. Yeah, you were cave diving.
I was cave boogering.
And I remember I said, "Whoa, you were like fucking spelunkering or something like that." And then I couldn't remember the word. Which is how I got boogering. And so, but anyways, so you picked out this like massive, like finger hiding booger, and he was like, "Quick, get me something."
It was a thing of beauty.
It was horrible.
One of the largest boogers I've ever picked out of my nose to this date. I mean, it felt like I had just discovered some sort of missing thing.
I think it was a polyp that had like lodged loose, and you had like dug it. I don't know, but it was massive. It was your first.
Anyways, I had it on my finger, and I was like, you gotta get me something.
Find something. So I'm looking around. There's no napkin.
I gotta get rid of this booger.
I found a receipt, but as I find a receipt, we hear Woo, whip, whip, woo, woo.
Yeah, so we get pulled over.
And the cop comes to the car.
And
And
he goes, you know, do you know how fast you're going? And I was like, no, I'd be honest. I think I was actually going like 36. I think the speed limit's 30. I'm pretty sure I was going like on the speed limit. And he's like, well, did you even see me? So he was pissed off that I didn't slow down when I saw him.
yeah, he said, because you didn't slow down.
He even said that. He's like, well, you didn't slow down. And I was like, well, I think I was going the speed limit, so I didn't know that it mattered. But and then he looked over at Kris and said, well, did you notice me? Did you see me?
And I said, no, sir. Honestly, I was trying to find a place to put a booger.
And he literally like looked like
oddly at both of us and then just said,
have a nice day.
Be more careful
next time.
We've had a lot of pedestrians get hit. And then walked away.
A booger got us out of the ticket.
Somewhere, some police in South Tahoe had to write a report about pulling us over. And the
I think he just redacted that whole thing.
He's just like, never fucking, I'm not doing fucking paperwork
never
like
happened.
this. Like, no. But it happened, folks.
True.
You heard it right here.
So that
Drew's a professional booger spelunker.
Cave explorers are called boogers, according to Kris.
No, according to you.
So they start going through this cave, right? And they're having fun. They're doing their cave thing, and then they find this rock. They bracket. They're going to kind of traverse this gorge, you know, or whatever. And
so the problem,
you are like a child.
I'm sorry.
Today.
The problem,
I thought I was going to be the bad one, but you are undoubtedly.
You just keep highlighting certain words. You're like, gorge.
I'm sorry if every word related to caves and these movies is a sexual innuendo.
You primed me for this episode with all of these.
An ingorge.
But you almost did.
A chasm. A great chasm.
But that chasm, that gorge, again, that has a lot to do with this bathophobic fear because you could not see the bottom. It was totally pitch black. So they're trying to like stick these little devices up into the rocks to like climb over.
And meanwhile, they find a bracket that's like 100 years old.
That's been there before.
Clearly somebody has been there before. They didn't realize that it had been there, but clearly it has. Or somebody has been.
And it was an old bracket.
Very old. And then they get the other side, they find these cave paintings that seem to show this is at this point they're trapped. They were not able to go back, right? They crawled through a little tight little corridor,
and then it caved in,
and the whole thing caved in. So now they're not able to go back, and now they don't know how to go forward. And then they find out that this is not the cave system that they thought they were in, and Juno had fucked them all. And so
almost probably literally,
yeah. And they now have to go forward,
and they have no idea if there's an exit.
So then they see this cave painting, and the cave painting seems to suggest there might be another way out, right? But they don't know. They're looking at these caves and going, this cave systems or this cave painting, and seeing all this weird shit on it, and it's all starting to get kind of odd. So,
it could be anything.
So then Holly starts getting excited, and she's running through these tunnels. She's the most extreme friend. Holly, the most extreme friend.
Most extreme friend.
And she falls down a hole.
Oh.
And this is where we have Chris's compound fractures. That's a perfect clip right there. I'm going to put that over some music. And every time we have a compound fracture from now on, we're going to have that little soundbite. Because we know Kris loves some compound fractures.
Oh my God. And then
I'm going to break some celery at the end.
And then, yeah, but you were like, I was like, oh, is there a compound fracture? And you were like, oh, no, I don't think so. And then as soon as I moved my fucking hands, he goes, oh yeah, there is. And I was like, oh, fuck you. Ow.
So we got Holly's hurt. And then we get our first image of a crawler. And these crawlers are these little creatures that are living down in these caves. And Sarah sees it, and they're scary looking fuckers. And she starts to try to tell everybody like, hey, we're not alone down here. There's some stuff down here that is not cool. And they look kind of human, but they're not. And they're crawling on the walls, and you believe me. And they're like, no,
shit ain't right.
You. They look like Gollum from Lord of the Rings if they were like just a little more badass.
Yeah.
But then a crawler attacks Holly and kills her. So
most extreme friend
is now the most dead friend and the first dead friend.
First.
So first one down is Holly. attacked by one of these crawlers, and these crawlers are creepy looking.
They're gnarly.
Yeah, they're blind.
They're kind of like bat
they
humans.
scream they have this high shrieking sound. Then they do like echolocation.
Yeah, they're like bat humans.
Yeah, so these crawlers are they attack Holly, they kill her, and now we're in panic mode, right?
Right. And we assume that these creatures have kind of evolved to live in this underground tunnel system that has never been explored, because we start to see the remnants of their dinners, basically. Human bones, moose, carcass, all kinds of shit in there. Yeah. The deeper they go, the more they kind of find
moose was actually on the outside before they came into the cave.
Of this civilization, basically,
right.
underground.
There's family systems living down there. So,
right.
So we start to figure out that there's mama and daddy crawler and baby crawler.
Oh, yeah.
Kid crawlers, and they're all over them. And there's a bunch of them. So the concept is maybe that these were like cavemen who evolved over time and formed this community in the caves.
Literally cavemen.
Literally cavemen. And then we start seeing these crawlers starting to attack them, right? And Juno kills a crawler. She's kind of badass. She kills a crawler, and then Beth comes up behind her, one of the other girls, taps her on the shoulder, and Juno's all pumped up from killing this crawler, and she reaches around and she puts a pickaxe right through Beth's neck.
Because she's just reacting. She's all on lizard survival brain.
It wasn't malicious. We know Juno's we have problems with Juno. She's kind of a bitch, and we have some issues with her from that we know some stuff was going on.
Like, never sneak up on a bitch after she's been fighting off crawlers. Yeah, so never sneak up on a bitch.
She swings her pick and goes right through her neck. It's pretty gnarly and gets pretty
so
gory.
Gnarly.
It's a good gory scene.
It's actually really sad.
This movie has some good gore in it for sure, like all the way through.
I did not like this movie.
So then Sarah finds these crawlers' lair, right? And she finds with tons of bones. And the crawlers drag Holly back
into these bones
and start chowing.
It's basically
down
like the Chow House.
Yeah. And then, then whoever's left, which I think is right now, everybody but Beth Beth is technically still alive. We find out later that, Juno basically leaves her there. Dying, instead of like putting her out of her misery or whatever, she just leaves her and kind of heads off on her own. And Juno kind of turns into Xena Warrior Princess, and she starts killing crawlers by throwing her pickaxe at it and snapping one of their necks with their bare hands. And now we start seeing Sarah kind of her
realizing and understanding.
Yeah, she finds Beth and Beth's still alive, and she's kind of gurgling and telling her, hey, don't trust Juno. Juno's a backstabber. And then she hands her this feather thing that apparently was a gift from Paul.
It was. When Juno found her when Juno stabbed her on her way down, she grabbed that necklace off Juno's throat.
Off her neck.
And so she had it in her hand, and she basically handed it over to the wife and was like, he was fucking her and gave her this.
Yep.
Like, don't trust her.
So now we have Sarah who's not trusting Juno. Everybody's dead. The whole group is dead except for Juno and, the two, I guess there were two other girls. They ended up dead.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, they ended up dead. The only two that were left were Juno and Sarah. And as we get towards the end of the movie, and now Sarah's, has battled her way, and she's killed crawlers, and Juno's killed crawlers, and they're trying to find their way out of this cave. And they're finally getting towards an area that is, where the end of this tunnel is. And it's just Juno and Sarah, and the crawlers are coming, and a bunch of them. And Sarah goes fucking
ballistic,
goes pretty brutal, and stabs Juno
in the leg.
To make her not be able to run away, and then she takes off. So
I don't have to be
Juno's
fast.
Now bait.
I just have to be faster than you, bitch.
Yep. And so
stab me in the back, I'll stab you in the leg. Leave you for the crawlers.
Juno ends up getting eaten by all the crawlers, and Sarah runs out and escapes. And she escapes out into the daylight, and she's got this very Texas Chainsaw Massacre moment, right? Where she's like the final girl in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, that's where the US version ended, if I remember correctly.
The happy ending.
Now, the unrated version shows both endings, I think. It shows the ending that we saw in the US, and then also shows the UK ending where
they don't get out.
She realizes that she kind of dreams all of that, and it goes back, and she's still in the cave.
She's still trapped in the cave.
So she's still trapped in the cave in the end. And then there's also a fan theory that this all was kind of in Sarah's mind, the crawlers and everything, and she actually just was starting to lose it.
Went insane,
and killed all of her friends. And there was no crawlers at all.
Kind of lost herself in grief,
right,
and in the disorientation that occurs when you're underground that far. And also too, they were going through some incredibly tight spaces, and I did not. This movie in general made me uncomfortable. My body was tense. My jaw was tense. My legs were kind of tensed up. My stomach wasn't easy. All the signs of, anxiety were present while I was watching this movie. And I wanted out of there for them. And that's those mirror neurons in our brains, acting as kind of a gateway of, oh my gosh, that's what they must be feeling right now. And if there's anybody out there who has ever been stuck in a too tight dress.
When they were crawling through those tunnels, you're like, oh man, this is just like being stuck in a tight dress.
If you've ever put on a dress that's just like a too tight.
You try to pull it over your
head.
And
then you try to get it off and it doesn't come off. And there's that moment of sheer like, oh fuck no, what am I and then you have to like calm yourself down so you can get this fucking dress off. But like that's a feeling.
Panic attack.
It is, but it's that like just a little too tight. I can't squeeze through. I can't, wiggle out. Suddenly I'm panicking.
Interestingly enough, so the opposite, very much the opposite of
like, I have to do some breathing exercises now. The fuck.
Pretty much the opposite of As Above, So Below. This movie was all filmed on a set. These were all built sets. And they did a really nice job with it too. Like they did a good job building these sets, making it look pretty realistic.
It was great. Can you tell me what one of the sets was named?
Oh, that's right. So one of the crevices that was built for the film was so narrow and slippery that the female cast dubbed it the vagina.
See, I'm not the only one, folks.
No,
we're all juvenile.
They are. Everybody is. The whole
Have
world.
A little giggle.
So some fun facts. Neil Marshall, who directed this film, cited Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Thing, and Deliverance as his main influences, which I thought was kind of cool.
There was no banjos.
There was no banjos. There was no squealing like a pig. But and he also said that unlike a lot of the like American films that kind of bring horror, everything goes from 0 to 100 real quickly. This was a real tension building, slow kind of build up, and I really liked that. I really liked the slow build up of this one. It's a really great movie. It was very original. Having the all female cast was a really cool thing. I think they and they made it a very diverse cast. Mm-hmm. I think every actress was from a different country, which I thought was interesting too. The crawlers, the monsters in this were they were designed to look kind of like Nosferatu,
and also have kind of the bat sonar location where they could kind of avoid them if they stood really still because they couldn't see them. They had adapted to live in a totally lightless environment.
And these were mostly all, I think there was definitely some CGI, but I think the crawlers were actors. They had to shave off all their body hair. They were all very
I bet you could buy like one of those full body Green Man suits that looks like a crawler like that. Ooh, and be that for Halloween.
That's a good idea. Get a white one.
Yeah.
And so they decided it was going to be too dangerous to film in a cave, so they made all these sets instead, and these were really amazing, very elaborate sets, and I thought it was a really cool, a really, really well put together movie.
Be safe in caves. It's dangerous.
Yeah, it's gnarly, man. The appearance of the creatures was kept secret to the actresses until the first scene that they had them
for a genuine reaction,
for a real reaction. So the screaming and all that stuff was all genuine. So really well done. I thought it was a cool movie. Did you enjoy it?
No.
Other than
I did not enjoy it.
Did it make you very panicky?
Very uncomfortable the entire time. And it led to a lot of exploration. And I definitely will not be exploring any, cave systems or being a miner or probably like own a house with a basement.
You won't be a muff
anytime
diver?
soon.
Anytime soon?
No, I won't.
I might be exploring some deep dark crevices.
Oh, gross.
Some dark engorged holes.
Oh, those are all just awful words. Like the
some slippery caves, if you know what I mean.
But
if you
yeah,
know what I mean. Winky blinky.
I didn't understand why the extreme friends felt the urge to like explore
because they're extreme friends.
I know, but like no, that's so.
Well, I tell you what, if you have bathophobia, you're going to want to stay away from The Descent.
Really uncomfortable.
And if you don't have bathophobia, you should watch The Descent. It's a great movie.
Also really uncomfortable.
It's a pretty highly acclaimed film. I think it's considered. I think a lot of people consider it one of the top horror films of definitely the last, decade or two. Last 10, 20 years.
If you're struggling with bathophobia, using this as kind of an experiential therapy process with your therapist might be a good idea, or virtual reality experiences.
Or maybe just go out and get yourself some extreme friends.
Yeah, don't have extreme friends. if you have bathophobia, that would be bad.
So check it out, guys. 2005's The Descent. Excellent movie. That's our bathophobia episode. We may break this one down again in the future with maybe some different twists to it, because bathophobia again can be canyons, tunnels, the depths of the sea, all kinds of different things can kind of fall into this category. So we will bring we'll be bringing this one up again in the future.
It can fall into this category.
Into some categories.
God, this is ripe.
So good.
So good.
So good. Well, let's get into, I don't know what we're going to do next episode. I've been trying to figure that one out, because we have Fear of Clowns coming up in a couple weeks when It 2 comes out. We're definitely going to be hitting Fear of Clowns. So be ready for that one. Next week, not so sure yet. Not so sure what next week's going to be. But we will be, but send us your suggestions. We've got to hit the ground running, keep going with this once a week thing that we've got going on. We've done it now. This is our third episode that we've done?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
I like it. So thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate you, Feardos. And until next time.
Stay afraid. Stay very afraid.
Kris's compound fractures.